Hey guys, I know we missed out on class today because of the grandparents' mass, and I just wanted you to know what we did in the 7th period class. Basically, I did a book talk, and I'll try to send you a copy of that book that we introduced today, in case anyone might be interested in furthering their knowledge of the Salem witch trials. And we also spent some time on the PSAT, introducing it anyway. There's nothing you should worry about. The PSAT is exactly what it is, preliminary scholastic aptitude test. So we just think of it in terms of practice. As a sophomore, no colleges are going to get your scores. It's not going to be used for the NMSQT, the National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. That's only for juniors, not for sophs. So basically, why take it then, right? But you are going to benefit from doing this because you can have an idea of what's ahead 1 year from now. And you can also start to understand what areas may need additional work and what areas you want to continue to do well in. The only thing you will start getting, though, based on your PSAT, is information from various colleges, because your name will be thrown into a big pool of names of students who will be eligible for college in the fall of 2022. So therefore, you'll get literature in the mail or emails and things like that based on different college settings, different college campuses and things like that. What is the PSAT? Okay, you're going to be taking it in homeroom on Wednesday, October 16th. The good news is it's a half day. In the past, we used to have an extended AM assembly plus periods 1, 2, 3, 4, and then students would continue with their regular schedule 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It was brutal on the sophs and the juniors because it was a very, very long day. So the good news for you guys is you have an early dismissal. You're just basically coming in, going to homeroom, and taking this test. Lengthwise, it's less than 3 hours. It's 2 hours and 45 minutes. But there are a couple of things you want to know going into it. There is no penalty for guessing, okay, or even for leaving a blank response. So if you're faced with a blank response or guessing, I would say guess, because there's no penalty for it. And I'll explain this a little bit more on the last slide when we do the scoring. And I'll also explain the scoring range a little bit better when we get to the last slide. But what do you need to know in terms of the format of the test? A lot of people will say that it's based on 2 sections, verbal and math. Okay, so essentially there are 2 sections then, verbal and math. It used to be called this way. Now they use the fancy words of evidence-based reading and writing. The reading is basically reading comprehension. You get passages and then questions after them. And the writing is not an essay. So please don't think that you have to write a full essay or anything like that. On the SAT, there's the option of writing an essay, but for the PSAT, there is no essay. It's basically understanding grammar. So I'll explain what I mean. In the reading section, for example, you're going to get passages, and then you're going to have a series of questions. Some of the types of passages would be literature. You might have a piece of American literature or world literature. Sometimes there's a U.S. document or some text in the great global conversation, like something by Nelson Mandela, for example. There's passages on economics or psychology or sociology. There's usually 2 science passages, and there's usually graphs, some kind of informational graphs. So what are they testing? Can you interpret information and ideas? Can you analyze things? Can you explain why things are written the way they are? Could you take paired passages that are side by side and compare and contrast them? That's what you'll see in the reading section. In the writing section, if you're a good grammar student, you're probably going to do quite well on this part, because you just want to think about this portion of the test as proofreading. Pretend you're an editor and you're going to be given a series of passages, and certain parts of the passage will be underlined. And then they'll ask you questions. Is there a mistake in this? Is it weak? Could you fix it? Could it sound better? So all the rules of grammar will apply. Subject-verb agreement, pronoun antecedent agreement, there'll be verb tense questions, words often confused, pronoun usage, modifier placement, even punctuation marks. Are things logically placed, etc., etc., etc. So I'll do a couple of samples with you, or you can even look them up in the booklet. But if you're good at grammar, you'll probably find that this section is not so bad at all. However, it's still going to involve reading. You have to be a good reader in order to excel on this part of the test. So let's get to the scoring. You get 1 point for every correct answer. So basically, if something is right, you get a point. That's the only way you can score. If you get an answer wrong, it's just 0. If you leave it blank, it's just 0. So rather than leaving something blank, you might as well put an answer in it, because that gives you a chance to possibly get a score. If there's no deduction for getting it wrong and there's no deduction for leaving it blank, you might as well guess, because you could possibly get a point by guessing. Now, each section is scored on the basis of 160 to 760. In other words, if you get every single question wrong, or you don't answer it, you don't score, you get nothing right, you'll get a 160. If you get nothing right on the verbal part, on the English part. It's a sliding scale. And if you get all the questions right, or the highest possible percentage of them right, the best score you can get is a 760. So you would take your score on verbal and your score on math, and you would add them together to get either the lowest score of 320 or the highest score of 1520. So let's say you had a 500 on the verbal and a 400 on the math. Your total score would be a 900. So in fact, that leads me to this next part. What's a good score? The average score is around 920 in the country. That would be like a 460 in English and a 460 in math if we're going to do them equally. What would be a solid score? A solid score would be anything that's, over 1,000, 1,100. That's solid. An outstanding score, like the people who are on our website right now for the Becoming National Merit semifinalists, although that's based on their scores junior year, it doesn't affect you, would be really high, like 1420 to 1480, somewhere around there, or even higher, perfect score. Have people gotten perfect scores? Yes, it happens. Is it common? No, it's not that common, but it can happen. It can happen. So let's see. In a nutshell, just to wrap up, remember this whole thing is practice. It'll tell you your strengths and your weaknesses, and you will have a whole year before you have to sit and take it again as a junior when it starts to count for what's called the National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. You'll have it. That only is in junior year. So as we get closer to October 16th, we'll do some practice exercises. I would encourage you to use the booklet at home and to just be fully equipped in the knowledge of what's going to be on the test. Having that as your background, then you can relax when you take it. No cramming, no forcing things, no anxiety. It's just a measurement of all of your work in your life up to this point. Okay? I hope that makes sense. Good luck.